On their second day in the White House, the Clintons invited the public in, but they were swamped with gatecrashers. Hillary took charge.
Here's the problem, is that for reasons unknown to us, they opened the gates and let people without tickets in, and we just screwed all these people.
We got swarms, so we are setting up the sound system outside.
Yeah, but here's what I just told Wendy. I want the people with the tickets brought in. That's what they came.
That's what we're doing.
Now go back to that line and get the people with the tickets.
We're doing that right this minute.
In the inevitably disordered way that democracy proceeds, more folks showed up.
Outside in the bitter January cold, the president spoke to the massive queue. The folksy idea of letting the people come visit had gone horribly wrong. Bill didn't have a clue what to do, but Hillary did. She wasn't just going to pour tea in the Clinton White House.
She was determined to craft a role for herself that would get over the problem we had identified in 1989, that she was not seen as her own person. At one point, she flirted with the idea of being chief of staff. And I said, no, the president has to be able to fire his chief of staff. You can't be that. Then she thought of being attorney general, and at one point thought of being secretary of education.
Believe me, everybody will get to go through the White House.
No seat in the cabinet, perhaps, but she was put in charge of the biggest policy initiative on the Clinton agenda, the reform of health care.
I think that in the coming months, the American people will learn that we have a First Lady of many talents, but who most of all can bring people together around complex and difficult issues to hammer out consensus and get things done.
That's not quite how it turned out. But healthcare was an issue she felt passionately about, in particular the people who couldn't afford it.
They are the children of the waiters and waitresses in restaurants that serve you. They are the children of the chambermaids and maids in motels and hotels where you stay. They are the children of men and women who go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning in small factories in order to make the goods and the services that you and I take for granted. They are the children of working parents, and they are left out in the cold without adequate health care, and it is a disgrace.
But healthcare was not like motherhood and apple pie. Reform was controversial. The health insurance industry thought she was out to wreck their business with her socialist ideas. Hillary didn't trust the media and kept them in the dark.
Well, I think that we were all naive, but that Mrs. Clinton was definitely naive when it came to the press. I do find it surprising, frankly. I mean, these are people who've been in the public eye for 30 years, especially Mrs. Clinton, who worked on the Watergate Committee. I mean, if that didn't teach you about the foolishness of trying to block the press from finding out things, what did? The only word I would say that you could use is arrogance.
She was certainly full of self-confidence when she took her case to Congress. This was Hillary solo, taking every question, master of every detail. Could this be a rerun of education reform in Arkansas a decade before?
Thank you.
Congressman was seduced by the glamour of the occasion.
You all are going to blind me.
First of all, there is no free lunch in this health care plan. It is not going to be free. Everybody's going to be paying something. Even people who are on Medicaid now will be paying something if they work, unlike today. And we think that is a big step forward for responsibility.
I have never remembered seeing a witness so well prepared, so focused, so completely in charge, and prepared to take on her most severest critics. I knew then that she had all of the qualities to be whatever she wanted to be politically.
About the health of her family and the health of her nation.
She just floored everybody in that. Even the most cynical of the journalists and the most Republican of the congressmen were left in awe of her capability to concisely answer the questions, to get the facts right, and most importantly, to suck up to the congressman.
I know that you on this committee share these goals. As stewards of the public trust, this is your responsibility.
I think in the very near future, the president will be known as your husband. Who's that fella? That's Hillary's husband.
But her arrogant streak took its toll. The legislation needed nursing through Congress. Hillary didn't believe in back-scratching, and Congress picked her program apart.
It appeared that when the package came to Congress, that this was a fait accompli, and that it was the First Lady's package, and therefore we had nothing to do with it.
The complexity of that plan and the fact that we wanted to push it through all at once was enough to kill it, I think.
By the autumn of 1994, 18 months after she'd started with such gusto, Hillary's healthcare plan was dead. It was a devastating moment.
Anything that would be attached in the future to her name, Hillary's drug plan, Hillary's crime plan, would be radioactive in Congress, and therefore would be, you know, DOA, dead on arrival.
James Madison, the president, was out in the field fighting the British, and the British broke through and they were marching to Washington. Dolly Madison was so brave. She'd been waiting for her husband to come back, and she had a big dinner that she laid out, and all of a sudden she gets this horseman coming and saying, "You've got to leave." And there was a great big portrait of George Washington. And she said, "I'm not leaving until we take that with us." And everybody was saying, Mrs. Madison, you have to go, the British are coming." She said, "I don't care." So they cut the portrait of George Washington out of the picture, rolled it up, and then she escaped just before the British got there. And the British got there and they saw all the food that she had laid out for her husband. They sat down and they ate the meal. Then they burned the house.
It was a bit like that after healthcare. The Democrats were routed in midterm elections as Newt Gingrich and the Republicans stormed into Washington. Bill Clinton was his political prisoner. Hillary felt she was to blame.
She was battered, she was bleeding, and she was hurt. She and I had a conversation in November of 1994 where she said, "You know, I'm just so confused. I don't know what to do. If nothing I do works out. I'm just baffled. I don't understand what's going on. I've always felt I had the temper of the mood of the politics, and I now feel I'm tone deaf. What should I do?"
Step back from the cutting edge of the Clinton agenda, said Morris. Avoid being seen as the power behind the throne. Take on a more traditional role, like other First Ladies. So at strategy sessions in the beleaguered White House, she was nowhere to be seen. It went against the grain. But once again, her personal interests were jettisoned for her husband.
The president said to me, "I want you to turn things around for me." And I said, "Just like I did in '82. And he said, "That's right." And Hillary said to Bill, "You know, you're going to have to stop asking us to save you like this." And Bill said, "Last time, I swear."
Hillary became Clinton's ambassador abroad. She spoke up for women and children around the world. She wrote a book. She had a radio show. It was very much the modest, quiet, appropriate role she'd railed against at Wellesley College in her student days. But it didn't last long. The White House was under siege.